Good afternoon. So, in this conversation today, career conversations as we call it, we have Mr. Prabir Jha, one of the most renowned names in the HR fraternity in India. And I'm sure that you're going to learn a lot from his insight. So, welcome to the show, sir. It's an
Uh,
honor having you here. And
Thank you.
through
Thank you
the
for
career
inviting me.
huh?
Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, it's my pleasure, sir. So through these insights, I'm sure a lot of youngsters could probably reflect better upon their career decisions. So I'll just straight away get into the questions. So you spent your formative years in Dean Obli, in Digawada, or at St. Michael's in Patna. So what were your takeaways from convent education, like English articulation skills, values, belief systems? And why did you keep changing schools so often? I mean, was your father in a transferable job or something like that?
Okay, so let me answer the second question first. Yes, my father was in the IPS and in the
Oh,
Bihar border. So as he moved around, we had to move around a little, at least till we got into the seventh standard. And after then, even as he moved, we were very much in Patna. That explains different schools in different districts in the early years. And he was a tough police officer, so not a convenient political choice. So he had to kind of keep moving around. But so that is how it was. But we were very fortunate that my parents put us through a Jesuit education. So I think when I look back, the biggest thing that I gained from a very good top-notch Jesuit education was of course, very high-quality education. You know, the category of teachers, the I.C.S.E, I.S.E curriculum, all that was very good. But most of all, I think we grew up with a lot of values because Jesuit schools do teach you a lot of things which, under what we call moral science. But
yeah.
a lot of your core values got shaped, core beliefs got shaped to do good to people, the value of integrity. So these were things that over 12 years of Jesuit education almost became a way of being. And as I start my career, I'm very grateful that not only did I have very good school education, but I had very good value education, even in the Jesuit schools that I went to.
I think I can completely relate to it because after 13 years in Don Bosco, so after class 12 farewell, we were given a memento which said, success shall come and go, but values shall remain forever. So
There
try to
you
be a
go.
man of values. I think that is something. So then at class 11, like between science, commerce, and humanities, so that choice is often very difficult for a youngster. So what was the thought process in your mind? And I'm sure you'll appreciate that you are in Bihar, and in Bihar, one tends to naturally get into that IIT JEE kind of a mode. At that point of time, would you take up humanities with an eye on the UPSC after some years?
So, I've always thought I've been both strategic and contrarian, So, when I finished my 10th and my marks were reasonably good, I must confess, but I made a choice to do humanities because ever since I was in the seventh or the eighth standard, I was very clear that, and maybe that was the product of the environment, my father being in the civil service, the world I knew was the government. There's not much of the private sector in Bihar at that time. And so if you were a bright student, bright kid, then having initials behind your name was the logical social expectation that if you're a bright guy, you will do that. Of course, you could have been a doctor or an engineer. But I'll be very honest, neither appealed to me. Neither medicine nor engineering was something that ever appealed to me. And the government was really where I wanted to be, a bureaucrat, a civil servant. So as they say that when others were learning ABCD, we were learning UPSC. So so that's really what I did. And therefore, when I finished my 10th, I chose humanities because very clearly for me it was to do humanities and then go to St. Stephen's College, Delhi, do history and write the UPSC exam. So, I mean, that's the way I had thought almost 7, 8 years ahead of what I did. And that's actually what the script that I played out. So it was a very strategic choice and pick. And God has been kind, so no regrets. But yes, if it had not panned out as well, I don't know whether I would have then regretted. But it was a very conscious choice and that's why I also have a very strong point of view on stereotyping. That if a guy has not done science, the guy is an idiot. And I can tell you, a huge majority of my classmates had marks worse than me and who did science and then engineering and did whatever. So that's never fazed me, that what have you studied? If you're a bright guy, you're a bright guy, and it doesn't matter what your interests are. You must do what you really are passionate about and not just conventionally play safe, because there is no place safe.
Conventionally, the topper has to take up science in most schools.
That's right. So and I can tell you, when I was in college, I had a couple of my seniors who were equally bright and if not brighter, who had done science in their +2 and chose to do history. And many of them, that they were in the top rankers in the civil services exam. So I think, there's too much of stereotype in India, which is the biggest trap that a lot of youngsters fall into.
So, sir, St. Stephen's is one of the most difficult colleges to enter in our country today. For humanities, last year the cutoff was 95.5. So out there in the 80s, so how was the scene in terms of admission? Was the rat race as intense? I'm quite curious because I was born in 1984, means by the time you'd already entered college.
So, it was always very tough, let me tell you. And I was the All India topper in humanities. And I applied for history, second preference literature, third preference economics, for the reasons I cited, right? And I got called for all three, and the first was economics. And I had to tell them, but I'm not interested in economics. Then why did you come for the interview? Because Stevens was one college which never went strictly by marks. There was an interview, and then only did you get to be selected or rejected. And I remember history was the next day. And because there was no guarantee that, just because I'm the All India topper, I would get through the course in the college that I wanted. So I went across to Hindu College, which is across the road, and I took admission. And my father reminds me even today that the professor there said, why are you blocking a seat? Because he's the All India topper, he's bound to get into St. Stephen's, but you're blocking a seat. But because of the interview criteria, you never know till you're finally there. So I did take admission at Hindu. Next day, I cleared the history interview, so I got admission into Stevens. I paid my fees and then withdrew my candidature from Hindu College. So that's how the entire thing played out, and it was very tough. The challenge of education in India has been that it's only getting worse, but it was never good. It has always been tough, right? Getting into a good college, into a good course, and that's the talent paradox that we see. That there are people and people and people, and yet there are very few right seats, there are very few right colleges. And so I'm glad I don't have to try for admission today. I'm sure that even with my marks, which was, as I said, was an All India topper's marks, I would have been able to make it into a college like St. Stephen's.
The quota also takes up half of the seats now, so that also makes things quite difficult for the general category. So cracking civil services and entering this ordnance factories boards. So were people at the ground level in those ordnance factories, wherever you moved around, were they amenable to the kind of ideas that you have, which you've implemented later in the private sector?
So, first I must admit, I have always been a little more firebrand than most people. I have never been a conformist that just keep it going, play it safe. I was the same even in the government. In fact, in the government, in my 9 years I was there, people would say, "Bahut dabang afsar hai," which I honestly think I was. Saab ke paas jao, yes to yes, no to no. I still remember some of these lines. But the good news is that I think when I look back, I was able to accomplish a fair bit even in the government reality. And a lot of it is because your staff, your team rallied with you. And I have talked about this earlier. Unlike the private sector where you can reward someone, where you can punish someone, you can promote someone, you can get rid of someone, you can't do all that in the government. And in many ways, in an unconscious way, I learned the art of leadership even before I went to do my MBA, right? Because it was all about inspiring your team. And it's an average set of people. They are all committed, but a mediocre average set of people. They are not Einsteins and Bernard Shaws. But I realized that you can climb Mount Everest, provided you can get the team to rally with you and around you. And so you did explain the logic, you did explain the reason, and people are smart. They understand anything which is commonsensical is fine. And we actually did many things where we changed the laws or the rules that existed at that time. But I think the biggest credit that I would give is to the team, whether in the corporate sector or in the private sector. They make the leader, they make the general who he or she becomes. And I think they rallied behind me brilliantly. And the fourth pay commission was something that was among my earlier responsibilities, implementing, rolling out things. And what did I do? I finally signed. But to get to that point of signature, to get the team to still work on Saturdays and Sundays and to do it in record time was a lot of their belief in what I said, and maybe a little bit of leadership, unconscious leadership, of just connecting with people, just making them feel important and significant, and the rest automatically gets done. So no, I never had resistance. Unions, and I had 25 unions and federations as a 25-year-old to manage, and I never had a problem with a single union in my career. So God has been very kind, or people have been very benevolent with me. I honestly don't think that I've had skirmishes or challenges. We've had our debates and arguments, a lot of banter as well, but I've not had Jhasab Murdabad in my decade in the government days. Never.
Amazing. So the next question, sir, then taking a sabbatical and then going to XLRI, what is more of serendipity? Or was it like, as you stated in one of your recent TEDx talks, that you wanted to make a better use of your box of colors?
So both. The fact was that while I had always aspired to be a civil servant, and that's really what it was, and life was very comfortable. You know how the feudal realities of the government pans out. We had a nice colonial bungalow. My wife was a batchmate in the civil service office. You had 3 people who would open your doors and stuff like that. But I realized that I was feeling a little bored and I wanted to study. So that was definitely a reality. I wanted to study. And in PhD, I thought it was a little too early for me. I never enjoyed finance and accounts. I found it very dry. I would have enjoyed marketing, but government and marketing didn't make sense to me. And HR, because a lot of my exposure in the government was around what we call today HR. So I said, why not? And that's how I took a chance. And I had not studied for so many years, and I wrote the entrance exam like everyone else does. I wrote the ZAT. Miracle of miracles, I cleared. So that was one push that happened. The second was, of course, as I mentioned in the interview when I cleared the written, that if India has to change, the government has to change. And if the government has to change, the civil service has to change. And the civil service has to change. People like us who were fortunate to have had very pedigreed education, we need to be at the forefront of driving that change. And I thought an MBA at XLRI specializing in HR would possibly give me the contemporary tools to use. I had never thought I would leave the government. I had never aspired to be in the private sector. So at that time, it was only about retooling myself with what is the latest in my line and come back, possibly even go to ILO Geneva and do stuff like that. But what happened was pure accident, but it was partly the boredom and the need to study more. And second was to retool myself to be relevant as a change agent as the government and the bureaucracy was to change. That's why I went and wrote the exams.
So then when you moved on to the private sector, across those leadership roles that you played in 6 major corporates, Reliance, Cipla, and so on, you've been able to ride the most difficult of horses, take the most boldest of decisions. And so how was this journey, sir? And were there moments which really tested your tenacity of purpose, people, corporate politics and everything else, normal Indian corporates?
So you're stealing a future book away from me by asking that question. But yeah, it's been 20 years in the corporate and including 2 Fortune 500 companies, 2 NYSE listed companies. I think it's been a dream run. God has been absolutely benevolent with me. But yes, it's not been easy. And most of the years I have been a CHRO. In fact, most of my corporate years has been as a Chief Human Resource Officer across Dr. Reddy's, Tata Motors, Reliance, and till recently Cipla. And most of what I've done has been in what I would loosely characterize as organization transformation. And when you're trying to change things in a company, and successful companies, well-respected companies, you can rest assured there is resistance. You can rest assured there are different points of view. You rest assured that not everyone necessarily agrees with you, because people talk about change, but no one likes change. That's my 20 years of distilled experience, that people just talk about being pro-change, but everyone resists because political coalitions get disturbed, political turfs get disturbed. You feel scared about the new future. And a lot of my challenge really has been about getting the right team, because you can't do such large-scale transformation all by yourself. So the credit of successful transformation of all these companies in the time that I spent with them, the huge credit is to my team, and they have been a phenomenal bunch. And I have been very conscious of who I pick or who I keep on the team, because they must be smarter than me, better than me. They must supplement me. There's no point having people who are exactly like me. And I think that's been a strategy which has paid off beautifully for me. So that's one learning. Second is, of course, a lot of it is about influence. How do you influence? Who do you influence? In which sequence do you influence? Do you do it parallelly, or do you do it one by? How do you sell that dream? Whether it's to the board or to the promoters or to your colleagues in the management team or the rank and file. I think these are matters of great judgment. And I would like to believe, when I look back, that most of my calls have turned out to be true and fair. Not all, but most of them. And if you've been able to rally the key opinion makers onto your side and have the rank and file ultimately believe you, trust you, and back you up, and you have a competent team to handhold you through this journey, you will deliver the transformation. But all the question elements that you asked were there. There is politics, there is jealousy, that not everyone wants to see you succeed. You discover friends and allies in very unknown places, including the unions, who become very strong allies for change. A lot of it is your own personal belief and conviction. Because I have always felt that if you want to do it, people may try and delay you, but they can never stop you. And I'll be honest, I mean, I can remember instance after instance that if I had finally laid out my blueprint of transformation, I don't think much has got mutilated or changed. You make a few political concessions here and there, but by and large, the script has largely remained unchanged, and we've executed that script. So that's been the journey. But yeah, it's never an easy journey. And my other insight has been it needs tremendous courage to be able to conceive and to drive home transformation, because there are many times when the knives are out for you. And I have always said, "Dar ke naukri nahi karna hai." You can't be scared and work, right? So you almost carry your resignation in your pocket, but do what is the right thing to do. And that's what helps you actually push the day through. Otherwise, every day there will be 10 reasons why you say, whose battle am I fighting? Is it really worth it? But it's strenuous. It's drained me a lot for sure, but it's been a very fulfilling journey when I look back.
So on a lighter note, when you introduced the 5-day week at Reliance, there would have been no resistance. Everyone would have been happy.
Well, let's not talk stories yet, but the people at large were elated. And I think I'm very grateful to the chairman, Mr. Ambani, for believing in it and signing off that decision. Many people had impressions about productivity loss, etc., none of which actually happened. And that was my big job of trying to tell people nothing is going to be different. Engagement will get better. And as we were getting more into consumer businesses, I felt this was the most strategic signal to send to both present employees and to future employees. So yeah, but it is still something that people connect me and that decision. And yes, it made history, it made headlines. So true.
Sir, you've had awards galore in your life. You were a CHRO at such a young age. But then, sir, how do you manage? I think it's very natural to someone. It really cannot be born as an appearance. The kind of humility that you carry, sir. I mean, you've been one of the most humble HR leaders, and I'm sure there would be hundreds of people who would appreciate the same stance which I am having. So, sir, then how do you manage? I mean, generally people tend to, have noses in the air. I mean, I am the head of HRO, etc.
So one very clearly is that's the way one is made. won't say I'm not proud of some of these awards. I think, I'm a normal human being. I'm proud. But I'm not overly carried away with that, because at the end of the day, the award is very ephemeral. No one remembers awards, right? In fact, my wife, we've just moved houses, and my wife says, can you dump some of these awards now? We don't have space for so many of these awards. So it's fine. Maybe I'll take photographs and keep them away or throw them away or whatever. I think I have never played for an award. They've happened, right? They've happened, and I'm very grateful and humble that they came my way. But I think the other key reason, apart from my Jesuit education, the values my parents gave me, the credit is my wife's, because she has kept me very, very anchored, very deep-rooted. People have never believed that I do a fair bit of household chores, almost everything I can do. I clean toilets, I make beds. When I had a pet, every grooming of that pet I did. I do my weekly shopping and buying of everything for the week for the last 25 years. And I don't do it on Nature's Basket or some online shopping. I go to a small middle class grocery or a vegetable vendor or machli vendor, and I buy things from there. So I think it's important to remind oneself that success many times is the roles. Success is not always yours, and it makes you feel a lot lighter, because at the end of the day, God has been kind, salary wise, car wise, but none of this actually has mattered. I've always said that, I was jumping on and off DTC buses in Delhi till I became a bureaucrat. So the transformation was absolutely bizarre, from a ticketless traveler almost to being saluted and salam. Similarly, in the corporate sector, the best of cars, the best of offices. But I mean, I'm equally comfortable just walking and to a Boywada market, which I'm sure many people in Bombay may not have heard of, and buying my sabzis and my meat and chicken like anyone else, and what's wrong? So I just want to feel very light. I don't want anything to be lying on heavy on my shoulders. If people are nice, God bless them. But all that I have valued is freedom of expression, freedom of thought, freedom of speech. I don't expect anyone to agree. I don't ever want anyone to say I'm a great guy, but I definitely want that at least the guy had a point of view. And as long as I had a point of view and I was not scared of speaking my point of view, I think it's been a good life.
Wow, amazing, sir. So, sir, on the career gym front, so then now it was like in Maslow's hierarchy, you had kind of achieved almost everything. So then was entrepreneurship the next journey on the path of self-realization or self-actualization? Prabir Jha Advisory.
Yeah, so at one level it is, because as I said, I have been the CHRO of almost every large corporation one would aspire to be, including 2 Fortune 500 companies. I don't think in India anyone else has done 2 Fortune 500 company HR leadership roles yet. So it was, and it's been a very fulfilling, very demanding 20 years. But so it was a logical effort to try and play what I call the gig world and see how it is, because I've never done it, and knowing myself, I want to do something I've never done before, and hopefully I learn. But I've also had some family circumstances and issues, including parents' health, etc., which needed me to have more flexibility with my time, because I was very clear I did not want my conscience to prick tomorrow that I had my money and my car and my title and my big corporate job, but people who needed my time, I was not there for them. So it's been a combination of both. Part of it is just that, like leaving the government and trying something in the corporate world, now leaving the comfort of the corporate, trying something that I've never done before. If it works out, it's great. If it doesn't work out, I still have many years ahead of me. I'm sure someone will find value in me. But more importantly, I will be able to spend time a little more flexibly with my parents and some of my family members who are right now going through some difficult health situations. So for me, that priority is to be very clear at any point in time. This is priority for me at this moment. So I'm just doing what my conscience is telling me to do.
So now asking for some gyan, sir. So for those people who are eyeing a career in human resource, so how does one assess one's suitability for the realm of people management? And sir, as I would you would appreciate that in CAT or any ZAT, it's a percentile here and there. So you get a finance in XLRI and a percentile there, you get HR. So it becomes as random as 1 mark here or there. So then, choosing HR as a career, what exactly should be the thought process that one should go for?
So, many people would have different take on what it takes to ask yourself whether you're cut out for HR. But to me, couple of dimensions you should ask whether you like. If you like to be in roles where you influence and your reputation, your effectiveness comes through influence, look at HR. If you want that, everything I control and I manage everything and I'm on top of it, HR is not the role for you. Because, the irony of the agenda is that HR is, in my mind, the most sensitive and the difficult aspect of running an organization. The most sensitive. And many CEOs have told me 50% of, and I've seen it, 50% of the time is really on HR or organizational issues. But it is the only function where everyone has a point of view. Not everything can be reduced to 2 + 2 is 4, right? So from the chairman to the doorman, everyone has a point of view on HR. Everyone will be right. Your one function, which is not really executing everything which is your agenda. You execute it through a series of line managers. So a lot of the HR experience is not HR the function. And you have to take a lot of flack for reasons that are not fair, right? So it's a very difficult function. So if you enjoy influencing, you love it. If you enjoy branding and marketing, you'll love it because you sell dreams, you sell aspirations to people. You will love it. If you have courage, you will enjoy it. But if you are scared, don't do it. If you enjoy people, it helps. But it's not a chiffon sari and a string of pearls job. It's a very difficult function. Many a time you say no. How you say no can be very different. But it's not about an easy job of making people feel happy. That's not what it is. And most important is if you have a strategic mind. Because, when something has to be delivered, which is 100% quantifiable, measurable in everything you do, it's a much simpler problem to solve. Here you're doing things which is not always quantifiable. And I don't think we should reduce everything to a number, which is the other worry I have when I see the trends. And many a time you sow things where you reap the harvest even when you are not there. So let's say you do something in a company, you may have left the company when the company actually gains and profits from what you thought 5 years ago, right? So no one is going to reward you or award you that way. So it's a difficult function, but if you really enjoy these 4 or 5 dimensions, I think it's a great line because the reward that at least I speak from my experience, both companies sooner than later and people in general, if you have touched them, coached them, helped them get to their levels of success and fulfillment, they hold you in high esteem till death do us apart. No other function has that opportunity of impacting lives and careers and the being of people that HR in its true strategic avatar has. And that itself makes it not only a great noble function, but a very strategic agenda to spend your career in.
So how has been your experience recruiting and managing millennials? I think that would be a very different ballgame. People born in 90s and 80s like me or like that. Has that been a complete different paradigm shift in terms of their expectations, your aligning expectations, etc.?
So, I have a mixed response to this. At one level, yes. At another level, no. See, the word millennial has become a very stereotyped and a very trite word. It's like saying every millennial is cut from the same cookie cutter. It's not true. A millennial in Patna is very different than a millennial in Bombay. A millennial in Dharavi is very different from a millennial in South Bombay, right? So I don't think I will stereotype millennials. As there are people in the past, pre-millennials who've been in the workforce, some of their issues and agenda has remained the same. They've had the same issues about careers, learning, impact, maybe even compensation. No different than the millennials. The difference that I find is that millennials are typically, and I'm just broad basing this, they are more expressive, they are more experimental, they are willing to try things out. They are willing to do 5 things at the same time. And the challenge is to respect this growing tendency. I see this in my own house. I have 2 children, both are in the field of law, and they just think different. You can't just order them and they'll be quiet. Like my dad, if he said 7 o'clock, be studying, 7 o'clock, you are studying. It doesn't work that way. And I don't think it is right or wrong, but the challenge is about understanding them. The challenge is about spending time with them. And what I worry about a lot of leaders is they don't have the time to spend with the rank and file, with the youngsters. The odd town hall is not adequate. You've got to really work with you need to be reverse mentor. I'll tell you, in my last assignment, some of the brightest people I worked with in Cipla were some of my young millennial fresh recruits from campuses. And I learned so much from them. And I can tell you, they are so accepted and bright. They will be CHROs even before I became a CHRO, and I was a fast tracker, right? So I don't think it is a challenge, but it is about a call. If you're going to be judging them all the time, I think you're missing the plot, because they will not change for you. You have to change for them. And this is the mental challenge that a lot of leaders are struggling with. In my times, who is interested in your times? You asked me some questions, but honestly, what I did in 1990 actually is a great fairy tale story, but that doesn't help beyond a point. And as leaders, many of us are stuck in the past. Whereas with millennials, you've got to be with them now and in the future. And that's the only challenge. You do it, they are much quicker, brighter, and once you've got them to get to your point of view and you're willing to flex, I think it's a lovely tango to do with the millennials. I don't think it's a challenge. It's a great opportunity to have to have the moment to learn with them, work with them, and to impact with them.
Sir, at the beginning of your journey, in your DNOBLY days, did you think that you would come all this far? I mean, you've been continuously saying that God has been very benevolent. So
no way. I'll be very honest. What was my aspiration? My aspiration, if at all, conscious aspiration, was to have cleared the UPSC, become a civil servant, 2024, get to being a secretary or equivalent in the government of India, 2027 retire with a Maruti 800 and a flat in Dwarka, Delhi. That was aspiration. There was nothing more, right? So I'll be very honest. I mean, one can give you a big story and say, no, I wanted this and I wanted the moon. And I can tell you, most people and most successful people did not really know that they would be as successful. And there are many more who are more successful than me. I've not been very successful. But the simple answer is no. And the idea is to take it as it comes. When you overly script it, then you create too much pressure, because careers are not about running 100 meters dash. There are so many curves and bends. You've got to enjoy every curve and bend. Don't judge yourself too harshly. Don't judge others too conveniently. Enjoy the journey. Enjoy the journey. What's the point of being successful as the way the world looks at you if you are not happy? And for me, therefore, I've always said, and I wrote a piece on this many years back, be successful by all means, but even more importantly, be happy. Because if you're not happy, your success does not count at all.
Interesting, sir. And sir, do you think luck played a role?
Of course, luck plays a role. You happen to be the right guy with the right problem, with the right people. I always say that my CEO in Dr. Reddy is G.V. Prasad, and I've said this on tape and I'm saying it again. He's the guy who took the biggest risk. He took the biggest risk, and maybe that's what I learned. So when I look back, I've taken bets with so many people ahead of time, irrespective of their education, irrespective of what industry they had been in, because he took a bet with me when I was 36, 37, when he made me the CHRO when NYSE listed Dr. Reddy. I was not asking. In my life, I've never asked for my increment, promotion, bonus, never. And that night, I could not sleep. It was not out of happiness. It was just that, my God, will I be able to do it? Because now the buck stops with me. So I was lucky that I had him as a CEO, and he was a leader who took infinite risks with younger talent. There are many, many leaders who just don't go away, who just don't vacate space. They don't take bets with younger people. So it's true. Maybe if I had worked with someone else, I would not have become a CHRO, then maybe Tata Motors would not have found me of interest, and then Reliance would not have found me of interest, and so on and so forth. So yes, I think serendipity, luck makes a difference. But at the same time, I must caveat it. You must be willing to play that card well. There is no point saying I had the luck. You can get the entry ticket, but to convert that entry ticket into a ticket to win is your brilliance, is your ability to lead, your ability to execute, your ability to build your reputation. That's in your hands. But breaks do happen by chance. That's true.
So one question, like a lot of people nowadays are finding like physical fitness also is becoming a challenge for CXO level people. So what is your fitness strategy, if I were to
It's
say?
both mental fitness and physical fitness.
Yeah.
Right? There is mental fatigue as well. I can tell you one of the big things I've been talking about, and I'll answer your question on fitness in a while, is on mental health. And I'm inviting people to join me on this journey. When I look at campuses, the top campuses in India, whether engineering, business education, law, I think the apathy towards mental health is so stark. And it is so painful. The government talks about mental health being, and they are not bad people, they are bright children, right? But it starts from there, and it happens even in corporates. Bipolarism, work stress issues. Definitely, I'm not a Jack Ma fan. Let me also be honest. I don't believe you need to work 15 hours for the sake of it. You're definitely not efficient. That's all that I can say. You can't sustain that. So mental health at one level, you need to train yourself. So do you take time off? Do you switch off on a weekend? Or do you carry office tensions home? What other passions, interests, and hobbies do you have which takes your mind away? I cook. I mean, for 13 years, I had a dog. I was absolutely besotted with my dog. Something which is not work. You know, what kind of friends do you have? There are many people who don't have a passion, hobby, interest at all. How are you renewing yourself? So that stress, that burnout, that leading to physical issues is a big, big concern. So I will tell everyone, learn to develop some passion, interest, hobby beyond your work, an identity beyond your work. If nothing else, go and buy your sabji in a Boywada market or equivalent, right? But do something which is not your just thinking about work, right? Unfortunately, a lot of corporate India believes that corporate slavery is a sign of loyalty and it does a lot of good work. It's all bullshit. We should change cultures of companies, and that's where leaders are to be blamed, right? So I think there's a big problem on long hours and, in my mind, stupid use of hours. We are not efficient as a country, right? So that's on the physical side, flowing from the mental. It's true. All of us need to renew ourselves, right? No one is getting younger. So whether it's through your health test, through your physical exercises, do whatever it is. And the doctors say, 30 minutes, 40 minutes of walk, even 4 times, 5 times a day, brisk walk is enough. But that also we don't get time for. Why? Why not? Nothing is more important than your health. Nothing is more important than you to your family. And let me tell you this, after 3 decades of working, no company will collapse, even if you're the promoter, the chairman, the CEO, if something happens to you. But your family will lose you altogether. So get to be more responsible for yourself, for your family, beyond your company. Many a time we believe, and I've gone through that phase myself, without me, the company will, it doesn't take the company 2 minutes to replace you. And maybe not even a prayer meeting will be done. Not even someone will say goodbye to you, right? This is the unfortunate reality. So please focus on your health. Please take time out, take vacations, lumber up a little, walk, play some sport, play some game. We cannot say we don't get time. If you don't get time for yourself, there is something fundamentally wrong. And no salary, no title, no career rat race is worth it. It's a great question, and I will use the opportunity of saying both mental health, and please join me on this campaign on mental health, #mental health, because the top law schools, the top IITs, the top business schools, it starts there. The apathy, the indifference of many of these colleges and their administrators to this is a huge problem. And it doesn't get better when you join the corporate work stream. So we have to get better, and therefore physical, some strain, some strenuous, some distress, is very important. So thank you for the question. This is a very, very good question. And I appeal to anyone who watches this program or this chat that take this very seriously, because you owe it to yourself and to your family. The companies will survive without you also. Don't take yourself too seriously.
So when I went for my 1-year MBA at IIM Ahmedabad, and I had initially those jolts which are typical B school life is, I actually had gone to a psychological health center. I didn't know that one existed on campus because I thought that IIM Ahmedabad was all about top achievers. And you will not believe that the lady whom I consulted, she said, I am chock-a-block with appointments because amongst all these bright students, which you will see like super CEOs, everyone has got some issues or the other because it's a rat race. It's a big...
Absolutely. And I'm glad that there is a good setup there. But I also know of campuses, top campuses, where people are committing suicide. There are students who are not allowed to write their end-term exams because of 1% lower attendance. I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, you can't judge life and the possibilities of such talent if you can't empathize with mental health. So mental health is an area of advocacy for me in also my new gig avatar, because people don't want to talk about it, people hide it, but this is a challenge that we need to show the world the mirror, and we need to get more people joined in this campaign to help to build a more mentally healthy world that we live in. That's very
I'm so glad that senior people like you are taking the cudgels for this kind of a tabooed cause in our country, that
Still I can count people who are bothered. I think the indifference in both the academic world and the industry bothers me. It's, you know, each one is bothered about his increment bonus and his so-called career, but who's going to help make this a better world? Who's going to help? What is your bigger purpose? What is your bigger onus? It's not just about earning. I'm not saying it's not important, your increment and bonuses, but I think we have a larger social responsibility to mankind. So anyone who's interested, I'm happy to hear from them and how we can, starting from schools and colleges all the way through work life.
So final question. So what would be your advice to youngsters with respect to careers? So you've seen so many careers being created, destroyed, bloomed. So
first is, don't try and be someone you are not. Don't be me. Be yourself, because that is where your genius will come alive. That's the first point. Second, don't be a prisoner of your education and your past experience. Careers of tomorrow are not going to be built on what was your CGP or CQPI and which companies you worked in. Many people are skeptical about thinking differently. They are all wanting jobs. Look beyond jobs. Careers are not about a set of jobs. They're a set of experiences. I mean, what I'm doing. Maybe 2 years later or a year later, I won't do, but I would have learned something. I would have learned something different. I think experiment with yourself a lot more. Don't look for doing the same thing, because just doing 30 years in one company, the same job, just change of titles and money does not mean you are a great careerist. That's not a career to my mind. So experiment. Invest in your learning, both your soft skills, which becomes more important beyond a point, and also some of the skills as they are changing. Review your own skill set, soft and hard, the way you review your investments, right? That is what will help you build your careers. And most important, dream big and have the courage to fail. Because when you fail, you will learn more. But unfortunately, many people just want to play safe. Oh, I got a 15% hike, so I'm going. But it's the same job. Yeah, but I'm going. I don't think that's a very sensible way of building careers. You've got to, and of course, maybe the last point I should write, more than the company that you work with, the brand of that company, work with the right people. Recently, I posted something about, choosing a boss, and many people wrote back saying, oh, but I can't choose my manager. Honestly, you can't choose your manager? I mean, I have chosen my manager. When I decide to leave, I decide to leave a manager, right? I mean, is it risky? Of course it's risky. But you can't just be there and say, no, but what can I do? The manager is bad. Then I have no advice. Have the guts to walk out, have the guts to experiment, have the guts to do greater diligence about the manager. Work with managers who will allow you to grow. Doesn't matter which company he or she is, but work with people who will make you grow, not with people who are going to extract their little reward and their little, work out of you. So these are very basic things, but unfortunately, we've just become robots on the treadmill. And that's why careers of tomorrow will not happen. So if these 5-6 things people are able to stop, pause, reflect, and if everything fails, reach out to me, talk to me. I'll be happy to help you guys on that journey.
So thank you so much, sir. I think these questions and the kind of answers that you gave, so it has been a great personal learning for me. And I'm sure the users who have been using this program would also get something significant in terms of the takeaways like I do. And after the immediate thing that I'm going to do is to follow you on that hashtag mental health, because I'm sure
Yes.
that is something, it's a great cause for each of us should be a part of.
To spread the word, and the apathy has to be killed. I don't care whether it's the director, vice chancellors, chairman of companies, board members. People have to change their attitude. You cannot be as apathetic and indifferent and bureaucratic as I think today the world is, and let the world be a better place. So thank you so much for inviting me. It's been a pleasure. I love your questions. I hope some answers give people some insights, and let's stay connected, and in any way I can help the world be better, I'm at your service. Thank you so much,
sir. Thank you, sir. All right. Bye-bye, sir. Bye.